As Clown World continues its descent into chaos and as regulators try and get their hands on ever more surveillance and information about your financial life, it is ever more critical to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Certainly, if you haven't done so already, this is an absolute non-negotiable. And even if you have already, it is always worth being aware of the range of tools that we have at our disposal. And that is why today I am excited to be taking a look at the Blockstream Jade. Let's jump in. And so I've covered a number of hardware wallets on this channel, everything from the Ledger to the Trezor to the Cold Card to the Passport, the Keystone, the Arculus. And I'm excited about the Jade today because I think it offers quite a unique set of traits. You can use this hardware device in a fully air-gapped fashion, meaning you don't have to connect it to an internet connected device such as a laptop, which you would have to do in something like a Ledger or a Trezor, for example. And it has QR codes like the Passport, which is a very nice way to do partially signed Bitcoin transactions, i.e. air-gapped transactions, without necessarily needing to pass the information back and forth on a micro SD. That can be a little bit cumbersome when it comes to something like the Cold Card. It's fully open source, and it is quite affordable, probably the most affordable option, or at least one of them out there at only $65 US as of the making of this video. And it also has a number of unique features. For one, it supports not only Bitcoin, but also assets on the Liquid Bitcoin sidechain. I've done a whole video on Liquid as a federated Bitcoin sidechain that offers some really attractive privacy guarantees to users. So I think Liquid is really interesting. And be sure to hit that subscribe button because I will definitely be doing a follow-up video where I go more into the Liquid ecosystem. And so that's highly unique, right? It's a hardware wallet that supports your ability to hold Liquid assets like LBTC, the pegged version of Bitcoin. It also has some other bells and whistles. You can actually use it as a solo miner, believe it or not. You have to leave it connected to a internet connected device and just let it run. Now, obviously, this is more for fun. You don't realistically have a chance of winning a Bitcoin block. And then importantly, I want to talk about the security model before we jump into the setup. So interestingly, the Jade doesn't actually use a traditional secure element. So in a lot of these other devices that I've rattled off earlier, you have what's called a secure element, and that is where, in most cases, the private key resides. It is living there. The downside is that many of these secure elements are closed source, and that can be problematic for something as important as a hardware wallet. Again, a lot of different options have open source firmware, but it's not always the case that all the elements of the hardware are also open source, and particularly when it comes to that secure element. And so Blockstream's gone with a different approach. Basically what happens is that your key is still generated on the device, but it is encrypted. So what is stored on the Jade is an encrypted version of your key. And in order to decrypt that, in order to sign a transaction or whatever the case may be, you use what is called a blind oracle. And so you put in your PIN number, and the blind oracle is just a server that is able to provide the information you need to decrypt the key that never leaves the Jade. Now, I know what you're saying, holy smokes, that sounds bad, but it's actually not. The blind oracle is fully open source itself. You can run one yourself if you wish to do so. And the blind oracle is unable to know any information, any of the wallet data of your Jade. In fact, it doesn't even know your PIN. It simply knows a hash of your PIN with a nonce that gets added. And the reason for all of this is to ensure that the device is fully open source, that it is maximally transparent, and also the secure element is one of the items that drives cost. And so that is part of why the Jade is able to be so affordable. And then from a security standpoint, the purpose here is to remove the possibility of physical attacks, someone gets their hand on your Jade, they wouldn't be able to get their hands on your Bitcoin unless they also went and somehow compromised the blind Oracle server. So I'm going to strongly recommend that you read through this FAQ on the security model that I will link in the description down below. It does go through some common misunderstandings, misconceptions, and while I appreciate this unique set of trade-offs, I do think some users are going to be okay with this, others are not. This security model, coupled with some of the pretty interesting actually multi-sig type capabilities that we will see later on in this video, this starts to approximate more like the sort of Unchained Capital, Casa, these types of security models for securing your Bitcoin, as opposed to just the device that has that kind of traditional secure element. And so what this whole discussion I think really boils down to, the kind of main so what and piece to think about as an individual, is which trust assumption are you most comfortable with? On the one hand, you have the traditional secure element route where you don't need this additional trust assumption to trust the blind Oracle server. However, keep in mind, as we discussed, that a lot of those secure elements are closed source. So you are trusting that secure element whether you know it or not. And then on the other hand, you could go with trusting the blind Oracle server. Again, it's fully open source. You can look and see that, oh, there's actually no way for it to be able to get, data from my wallet, etc. But again, I think just the mere utterance of the word server anywhere around, my kind of cold storage Bitcoin is going to, of course, throw some people off. So if I'm being, honest and offering my own perspective here, I do think there are arguments for both sides. I do think there's furthermore a broader argument for, your stack spread across different devices anyways, to diversify against manufacturer risk. But again, that is a decision that you will make. And so I want you to make that decision with the full information. So I will link this in the description down below. But with all that preamble, let's now jump into the actual setup and take a look at the device itself. All right, so you should receive a box that looks like this. You want to ensure that seals here. If they aren't, it could mean someone potentially tampered with this. So we'll go ahead and get this open. And so here we have it, small but mighty. And honestly, it's pretty nice that it's that compact. You will get the device itself. You will get the cord. Now, just remember, if you do want to use this in a fully air-gapped fashion, you'll want to plug this into some sort of power bank that is not connected to the internet. If you want to charge it, you'll get the little pamphlet, some other information, and on the back you'll have the space where you can write your seed phrase. And you also have this seed QR, which is pretty cool. You can draw what will ultimately become your seed phrase and then import that at a later setup step. For the device itself, you have the power button on the side there, and then you have the scrolling wheel to make different selections among the menus. You've got where the USB-C charging cable can go in, or if you don't want to use this in a fully air-gapped fashion, this is where you would, of course, plug this into your laptop or what have you. And then there is the camera on the back to support QR code-based air-gapped transactions, which is very nice. Now, one observation, it would be really nice to have as well some sort of micro SD slot to do things like the firmware upgrades. We're going to do that next. It's always a best practice to upgrade to the latest firmware, but it's not really obvious to me how you can do air-gapped firmware updates after the first one, right? So keep in mind, we have not yet created our wallet or any sort of key on this device. And so the very first thing we're going to do is get the latest firmware onto it. And so to do that, there's a couple methods. We are going to plug the device into my computer. All right, so we've got it plugged in and you can see it is powering on for the first time. And we can see it is uninitialized, so that means we have not yet created the actual wallet itself. And before we set up the Jade, we're going to get the latest firmware. So what we're going to do, as you can see on their setup guide, there are a couple ways to upgrade the firmware. You can use the accompanying Blockstream Green app. In our case, we're just going to use this upgrade web portal, and we will say update your Jade. and it has identified this device. I'll go ahead and hit connect. And so you can choose between the option that does have Bluetooth enabled and the version that does not have Bluetooth enabled. I'll go ahead and confirm the version. And you can see it says preparing for firmware update. And it's asking us to confirm the version on the Jade. So as we can see, firmware version 1.0.26, no radio, and you even get the hash. So that is also very nice. And indeed, we can see that we're upgrading from 21 to 26. And we can see the file hash and it scrolls for us. And it's always a good step just to take a peek and make sure that those line up, but it looks good. So we'll come up and say yes. So we've scrolled up and then we'll just hit this button to confirm the upgrade. And it is upgrading our firmware. So while this is going, again, on the topic of doing this in a fully air-gapped fashion in the future, again, a lot of people ask, well, how often should I update the firmware? You don't have to be doing that frequently, maybe like once or twice a year. But I suppose if you're super paranoid, what you could do is wipe your key from the device and then plug it back in and use this method we're currently using to get the latest firmware and then restore your seed back to the device using your mnemonic phrase or your seed phrase. I suppose that is one approach if you are super paranoid. So just a thought there. So we're going to let this finish up and then we will be right back. Okay, so as we can see, upgrade successful. That is great. Our Jade is now updated. So now that we have the latest firmware, version 26, we will go ahead and set up the Jade. So we're going to just click the button. So it gives us a way to get some instructions. That's fine. You have this begin setup option or the advanced setup option. The advanced setup option, if you do want to add a passphrase, for purposes of this video, I'm just going to go with the basic beginner setup. And we are going to create a new wallet. Okay, and so it is now going to use the random number generator to create our private key. And we are going to write down the associated seed phrase or our 24 words. And we are going to keep them safe. We are never going to share them with anyone. My bad, it's actually a 12-word seed in this particular case. And then it's going to give you one of these little quizzes to ensure that you actually wrote it down correctly. So I'm going to do this and be right back. Okay, and then once we have done that, it's going to ask for the type of connection that we want. And so you can choose USB if you intend to connect this directly to, for example, a laptop or a companion app that we will download either on desktop or, if you're using Android, you could connect it to mobile. Or if we want to use this in an air-gapped fashion, we can go to the QR option. So what we are going to do is actually not use this in an air-gapped fashion today. If you were to go with the QR method, it's then going to display a rotating QR code that you can present to a companion app such as Sparrow Wallet. You could also do something like Nunchuck on mobile that should be able to scan that in. So we're going to hit go, and then it now gives us the instruction to connect Jade to a companion app. We need to now pair the device with a companion app. And for those of you that might be new to hardware devices, what you need is some other interface where the private key is never going to leave your Jade. But what is going to happen is you are going to pair the Jade with one of these options. So you've got Blockstream Green. I've done a bunch of content on Sparrow, which is another fantastic tool. It's probably my favorite desktop wallet that there is. So I've done a lot of content there. You could probably check out, if you do want to pair it with Sparrow, you could check out my other videos. You will see how to do that just by watching those other videos. You could use Spectre as well. You could use Electrum Wallet. So there's a number of different options. We are going to use the Blockstream Green. So what we'll do, we'll go ahead and download the Blockstream Green. So we can see this now in our downloads. And then what we've also grabbed is this SHA-256 hash file, this sort of checksum file. And you can grab that by coming over to releases and downloading the SHA-256 sums.asc file. So what you can do with this, if you have something like Cleopatra and you're familiar with that and familiar with verifying downloads and things like that, you can use this with Cleopatra, or alternatively, you can just come to that file, right click, and open with something like Notepad. And so what you'll see are these different hashes associated with the different downloads that you've downloaded depending on your operating system. And so what we're doing here, just as a best practice check, is to confirm that the hash that they have specified actually matches the hash of the file that we downloaded. For example, maybe there's a malicious attacker that gets control of the Blockstream website somehow and publishes software that looks like what you think it is, but it's actually not. And so this is a cryptographic way to ensure that what you've downloaded is exactly what you think it is. And so on Windows, what I'm going to do is I am going to use the command cd downloads to get to my downloads folder. And then I'm going to use the following command, cert util -hash file. And then I'm going to copy the name of this. And I'm going to put SHA-256 for the type of hash function that I want to run. Now, of course, that command is going to look different if you're running this on Mac, but you can just Google, Mac how to find the hash of a file, and you'll find easy instructions for that. And so we can see that the hash we've generated here, when compared to the hash we're expecting, they are exactly the same. So that's great. Again, a good step to get in the habit of doing for these downloads. But we are all set there. So we'll come back, we'll open up this installer, and we will get this installed. This is fine. We'll say more info and run anyway. And we will let this install. All right, so we have finished the installation process of the Blockstream Green. All right, so as we can see, Blockstream Green, we've got our interface here. You can see some of the different wallet options you have. You can always create a hot wallet by going to this button here, hitting create wallet. You want a Bitcoin wallet, you want a liquid wallet, etc. What's pretty cool is they have this multi-sig shield option where it's basically you have one key and then they have one key that is protected by your two-factor authentication. So that's not dissimilar to like an Unchained Capital or a Casa type thing. That's a pretty interesting option right there, and that's pretty nice. And then we can see a couple of hardware devices. It's not actually clear to me how to add others. I'm pretty sure Green can support others like Trezor and different things like that. But in any case, for our purpose, we want the Blockstream Jade. And so we are going to get this connected into the device, and then we're going to get the other end into the computer. Okay, so as we can see, we have got the Jade uninitialized. So we're going to set up our Jade, and it's going to prompt us to put in a PIN, a 6-digit PIN. So we're going to do that and be right back. Okay, and so here we go. We are now sort of in a live session. Again, that PIN is super, super important as it is what's going to decrypt your private key. So once we're all connected, I guess it presents these couple of different options. We can do that multi-sig shield option, which is pretty cool. For now, we just want to demonstrate a single sig. So I guess we'll say log in. And so from here, if we wanted to receive some Bitcoin, we can simply go to the receive button. And then we can scan this with another Bitcoin wallet or copy the address here and share it with whatever other wallet. So if I wanted to, for example, I would come over to whatever other wallet, right? I'm just showing an example with my Umbrel node, which has a wallet built in. And so I can say withdraw, however many sats, maybe 100,000. Fees are absolutely bonkers, so I'm not actually going to do this, but you get the point. And so if I wanted to broadcast, I could review this and then confirm the transaction. Again, with fees absolutely raging. Classic when you're doing a tutorial. Fees in the mempool are just going absolutely crazy right now. But that is how you would receive Bitcoin into your Jade. And so again, keep in mind that what is being displayed here from Green is your address. You can also cycle through and generate a new address if you'd like. Your wallet is capable of creating any number of addresses, so that's very nice. And what's also really nice is you have this verify option. This is always a best practice. The first time you're using a hardware device that's just been paired with a companion app, you can click this verify, and then you'll see on the device, it is displaying the same thing. And so again, just making sure that pairing process happened in the way that you expect it to, and it looks like it has. So that's receiving. If we had Bitcoin funds to send, we would be able to do that. Of course, it says we don't have any. but you would simply put in the address that you want to send your Bitcoin to. And then when you do send funds out, you will be prompted on your device to sign the transaction. You'll have in your addresses tab the different addresses that have been used. And so that's a nice way to ensure you're not reusing addresses, which is always a best practice for privacy. And then you also have coins where you can see your different UTXOs. Again, that's very nice for UTXO management. And then if we come back, we can take a look at this multi-sig shield. This we can go ahead and log in. And so we've got this multi-sig account as well, which again is pretty cool. It's going to be using your device, of course, and then there will be another key that's going to be used that is protected behind your two-factor authentication. And I believe if we go to add new account from here, you can also add this special 2 of 3 account. And so this is yet another way that you could create a multi-sig within Blockstream Green. From what I'm seeing, I don't think it functions as a more generalized multi-sig coordinator, such as what you can get with Nunchuck or Sparrow or some of these other companion apps. But this is a nice option to have. And so if we clicked this, you can either create a new recovery phrase or basically a new hot wallet to serve as that third key. So there would be your hardware device, the Jade. There would be the key that's on the Blockstream Green server that's protected by your two-factor authentication. And then whatever the third one you create here, or you have this more options tab where you can either pick from one that's already been created, or you can use this public key option. And so you could grab this from whatever other, maybe a different hardware device, right? And put in your XPub there. And that would enable you to construct a 2 of 3 multi-sig within the Blockstream Green. So again, not the full-blown kind of flexibility that you might want, but I do like that you basically have a sort of Casa-like solution built directly into the Blockstream Green. That is pretty nice. And so let's exit out of this. You can, by the way, also connect your own node to Blockstream Green. So by default, you're going to use one of their nodes to fetch information about the blockchain. A few other pieces I wanted to cover just on the Jade itself. I know it's a little bit hard. Maybe you can see that better. So this is when it is connected and active, as you can see. So that means it is connected to the Green companion app in this case. You can scroll over and do a number of things. You can bring up the camera if you want to scan a QR code of some kind. And you also have these options here. So you can go into wallet, for example. You can export your extended public key. So you can come in and display that to be able to import this into other types of companion apps, whether that's Sparrow or whatever the case is. And you can come down to options. Right now it's displaying the single sig export, and you can even change that to multi-sig, right? Any wallet has different sets of keys for multi-sig versus single sig. And so you can change that and display the updated QR code. So that is how you sort of export it or pair the device in a flexible way with the QR code. So that is nice to have there. You also have this device section where you have some settings here. You can change some display settings, how long until it times out, things like that. And this is also where you can factory reset the device. Again, the use case there might be if you want to use this fully air-gapped, you could factory reset and then use the online portal we were looking at earlier to do the firmware update and then recover your same seed phrase onto the device. You have some authentication settings. You can put a duress pin, which is kind of interesting. So a duress pin will delete the wallet on the Jade if entered. That's pretty cool, right? So let's say that, someone's putting a gun to your head and trying to steal this or get you to enter your pin in order to unlock, your private key, as it were. This duress pin can be something you put in and it will delete the wallet contents when you enter it, which is pretty neat. And then if you come all the way out, so if we come to this live session that we're on and we log out of that, you'll see that we're kind of back on this main screen where it says unlock the Jade. And so I could click that and re-enter my PIN in order to get back into that live session. And then you have additional options here like adding a passphrase. So a couple other bells and whistles that are included here. But with all that, let's go ahead and conclude today's video. All right, so overall, I think the Blockstream Jade is a solid option for a hardware wallet. It is among the very most affordable that you will find, and it also packs quite a lot in despite that. You've got the camera, which is nice for the ability to have air-gapped usage using QR codes. And as we saw, the Blockstream Green companion app, which of course is free, is pretty nice in the sense that you get some of that multi-sig shield functionality that in other cases you have to pay for, right? Like there are paid services out there that Blockstream Green is essentially allowing you to do for free. With that being said, as we discussed, I do think it would be nice to also have a micro SD slot. I think that would make things like firmware updates, air-gapped firmware updates a lot easier. Right now you would have to factory reset the device, install the latest firmware, then recover your seed phrase onto it. So that would be really nice to see. While the size is nice in the sense that it's very compact, I do also think the screen can be a little bit small. You'll need a high def camera for sure to read in the QR codes properly. And then it would be nice, as we saw in the Blockstream Green companion app, to actually support the air-gapped QR code importing method. I am told that will be there by roughly the end of this year. So by the time you watch it, that indeed might already be there. And I'm also told they are working on integrating Lightning into Blockstream Green, which would be very cool as well. So you will have kind of one place where you can manage Lightning, you can manage your cold storage on your Jade, your liquid assets, etc. And so all in all, a solid option. Again, do be sure to read through that FAQ on the security model, which as we discussed is a little bit different than some of the other hardware wallets that are out there. I'm curious to hear your thoughts though. What do you think of the Blockstream Jade? Are there other hardware devices you prefer? Are there others that you want to see future content on? Let me know in the comments down below. But I hope you found this valuable and insightful. If you did, you already know what to do. Give this video a like. Use the share feature underneath the video. That really does help get this to a broader audience. And if you were so enamored with this content, you want to donate to a pleb, which really does help me continue to make these videos, you can do so in a number of ways. There's the super thanks feature built directly into YouTube. If you happen to be using something like the Get Alby browser extension, you can just click that. It'll automatically detect you're watching my channel. You could send some sats that way, which is pretty cool. Or you can send some sats to my Lightning address, me@www.ianmajor.xyz or rageyourmajor@getalby.com if you have any issues with the first one. And lastly, a lot of you have asked how you can get in touch with me. Maybe you have deeper questions. You want more hand-holding. You want to talk through a particular setup, or you need some sort of kind of consulting advice, whatever the case may be, and whatever the topic may be, whether it's setting up a multi-sig, an inheritance plan, accepting Bitcoin payments for your business, running a node, you can reach out to me on Vita. Vita is an awesome platform that I'm starting to use a lot more now. And so you can even schedule time. You can schedule a call with me through that platform if you'd like. But for now, we'll go ahead and leave things there. As a reminder, every sat counts. And until next time, my friends, I'll see you then.